Hello everyone, my name is Jair with Danger Beats Music. Today we are in my bedroom and I'm going to show you how to remake the song Crazy by Le Seraphim. It's a K-pop song. It has some elements of EDM and some elements of funk. So let's get into it. Okay, so it is B minor and we are at 130 BPM. B minor. We're starting with the bass. Okay, so let's record that really quick. So let's see. Inside user library, I have my clap. We are currently working on this clap because I wanted to have a little bit of reverb, but I don't want the reverb to sound at the same time that the clap sounds. I want it to have a little bit of a ducking effect, which is why we're talking about this compressor and what it calls a sidechain. A sidechain is a copy of the original input signal that the compressor uses to realize when it's going to act and when it's not going to act. The thing is that you can actually set an external sidechain source. And for example, this time I'm going to have it be the actual clap itself, pre-effects, so that when the clap comes in, the compressor acts and pushes the volume down. Now, what I am doing here is I am placing this compressor onto the same channel that is receiving the reverb. That way, it'll duck down when the clap comes in. So it'll sound like this. Not doing a great job. See how it kind of pushes it down when the clap comes in and then the reverb comes out? So I don't want it to be that exaggerated, obviously. Maybe a little bit more, less release. Yeah, it gives it a little bit more space. And doesn't clash with it, because if I turn off this compressor, see how the reverb just kind of comes in like super quick? I don't like that. Now it has this kind of little pumping effect, which is what I hear in the song. So we have a hi-hat. We have a hi-hat, which we can add right here. Let's call this hats. Now this hi-hat, I had to search for it. I had to find it. It looks like we're done with this first part of the song, so let's go to the second part of the song with a kick. Sounds like that's the only difference. And this sounds like a pretty standard kick, nothing crazy. Again, I went in, I kind of already worked on it with a sausage pattern, which we don't have on this laptop, so I'm just going to delete that. This F6 kick, I just got it from Splice, which is a website where it sells a bunch of samples. You pay for a membership, and then you can download a certain amount of samples per month. The original kick sounds like this, which is basically what they use, nothing crazy. Let's make that here. We don't need that super low end. Anything below 50 really is kind of useless. We also don't need all this top end. Although it seems to have a good impact. Usually right about here. Okay, it has a little. So we're actually going to do some real sound design here. First, we need to find the actual note. So let's put Serum in here, which is the synthesizer that I use. And let's find the note that they're playing. It's an E. I'm going to draw that in. I'm not going to play that. 1, 2, 3. Now we actually do the sound design. This is where it gets annoying. This is why I didn't want to do sound design on stream, because you have to loop it over and over and over and over again and make some adjustments here and there. So what I like to do when I'm sound designing and copying a song that already exists is that I like to pan my sound that I'm making, whether to the left or the right, and then pan their song to the opposite side and do some subtractive EQing so I can only listen to the actual frequencies that I'm trying to copy. So this one just sounds a little more, like chorusy. There you go. See, that's a little better. Now it sounds a little more similar. Now let's put a little bit of distortion. Perfect. And then it sounds like it has a little bit of delay. Definitely some reverb in there. And then some filtering going on. So let's put some EQ on this. That's pretty much it. Pretty simple. Oh yeah, okay, so pop, pop, pop. A little extra claps in there. Whoops. Just remember, whenever you're adding some more rhythmic elements in here, mess with the volume because it makes it sound a little bit more real. Especially like that. We have the little what thing. So I didn't really do much. Again, I just, utility, what it does is it lets you control the gain, which I don't know why I did that. That's stupid. I could just put the volume down here. The width describes the phenomenon of mid-side. So there's left, right, and then there's middle. Whenever you're listening to anything with two speakers, it means that it's a stereo signal. Right now you're listening on headphones. I think Twitch streams on stereo, I think. So you're hearing something both on your right ear and on your left ear. Now what makes it stereo is that the two sounds are not identical. Because if you're hearing the exact same sound at the exact same time on both your left and your right ear, that means that your brain is going to perceive it as it coming mono, or just one signal. It's not going to perceive it as two different sounds because both left and right are identical. When they're different, you get this perception. The brain perceives it as something that is in a spatial position. Because think about it this way. If you're standing in a room and there's someone directly in front of you, you are hearing them and you are hearing their voice in both your right ear and your left ear the exact same volume. But if they're standing on your right, then you hear them more on your right ear than you do on your left. You hear more reverb on your left because of the room reverb. You hear more of other noises, and that gives it a spatial position. Now, how do we apply that to music production? That is how you can attribute space. So there's a limited amount of space that you could use in any kind of sound, in any kind of song, because there's only so many dimensions that you could go out on. So there is the dimension of frequency, which means that there's low frequency, mid frequency, high frequency, from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, so the human ear can hear, although there's a lot of hearing damage going on, pretty prone these days, pretty common. So maybe some people are like 18K, 17K, probably later in life. But the point is that that is one dimension. So a kick is, the main power of a kick is in the low, the main power of a vocal is in the mid, and then the main power of like a hi-hat is in the high. So those are the dimensions that you can move on. And all I'm doing here is, when you make it mono, it takes both left and right and makes it identical, or I think it only takes one of them. But if you make it like more wide, then it'll exaggerate the differences between left and right, which will make it sound like this. But if you have it mono, it's like right in the center. So that's all we need to do. What else we have here? We have the first synth. Oh, well, not the first synth, but the first chord. So let's go do that. Put in Serum. There you go. Okay. There you go. There you go. Gotcha. What do we call this synth? A wah synth, maybe? Womp chord. Okay, sure. That sounds pretty close. To me, that sounds pretty close. Now we're going to continue with these, but we're going to get rid of this bass plug and continue this. Ooh. They really cooked with this one, for real. Okay, so this right here, it loses the kick. Oh, right. Okay, so we're missing the stabs. So the disco funk, like the funk stab things, that is literally just a sample, like a violin sample. that they got from that they got from Splice, and I was able to track it down. So this violin run thing. Yes. There you go. So again, this one's nothing crazy. It's literally just something that I found from Splice. It's a sample that you could buy that they used for the song. It's this. Pretty simple. Let's go here, and we can now duplicate this because I'm lazy. I think that's what happens. Oh no, it goes back. It goes back to this. So. Oof. All right. Yeah, that's it. Oh, and they're using a different hi-hat now. Like an open, okay. It sounds like, okay, so I have this one saved also. This one's in the hats. So we're gonna add that into here, hat number 2. Yeah, that's the one. So let's go here. And it's the same pattern as the other one. Nothing crazy. I don't like how it cuts off like that. Yeah, that's better. There you go. It's a little bit pan to the right, which no reason to really do it with the utility. You could just do it on the track. And it helps you keep track of it better, because when you're actually working through the project and you're wondering, hey, is this one panned a little bit? You actually have to go in and click on the track and look at the utility plugin, which kind of a waste of time. You could just pan it on the actual track, and then when you're scrolling up and down, you could very quickly reference, oh, it's panned 10, I don't know, whatever's to the right. And again, the gain here, it's okay. It's no real reason to do that. You could just put the volume down on the actual sample itself if you really wanted to. -13. And it's not even that like the utility lets you be more precise. Like on the clip, you could put -13.3 decibels. So like this utility is basically useless unless, nah, I don't need that. Ooh, the funk. We finally got to the funk. Okay, perfect. So now we can duplicate this again, but instead of the bass pluck, we are going to be using something else, which, let's bring in Serum every single time. Here's another quick trick. If you guys are adding a new MIDI track or an audio track, and every single time you want it to be at a specific level, then you could just save that track as a preset. So I'm going to add in, for example, this Serum right now. It's at -15. All I got to do here is get rid of everything on that track. And again, you can't see it because I removed the actual synthesizer from it, but it's still at -15. So I'm going to move this out so that it doesn't save the actual preset as a track with the synthesizer in there. Now that it's at -15, you right click, save as default for MIDI track. So now if I add a MIDI track and place something in here, it is now going to add it at -15 decibels. So every single time that I add a new MIDI track, it's going to add it with the level at -15 dB every time. So much easier. I did the same for my audio tracks at -10. The reason why I had to redo that right now is that I left my vocal at -10 in Ableton. So everything else has to come in lower than that for mixing. So -15, that's done. We are going to my user synths, and it's the funk one, funk cowbell. This one we are going to go over the sound design because I fucking love this synth. So it sounds like this. Whoop. No, it doesn't. That's the wrong octave. That doesn't sound right. Okay, this one's an E. It should be in B. I think that's what it sounds like. Ooh. Okay, so we're missing a couple of things here. You can tell that in the original instrumental, it has like this kind of ducking, which again is just an external sidechain, external key, sorry. We call this funk bell. So let's do some basic EQing, which I haven't been doing for the other stuff. Terrible. Okay. So we're cutting out all the unnecessary frequencies, really. So this is called sweeping. I just put the volume up really high and I sweep through to find what frequencies are annoying. Like right here, you could tell that's a main frequency. It's not annoying because it's part of the sound. It doesn't hurt your ears. This kind of does, which there's no harm in removing that, you know? It makes everything better. This right here is kind of the impact of it, the attack. So I'm gonna put that down. See how these high frequencies are not the attack, they're the actual body. But once you start going down to these mid highs, the actual impact is in those frequencies. So because we want it to be ducked, there's absolutely nothing wrong with putting those frequencies down so that it sounds like it's being ducked. But we are actually gonna duck it. So we're gonna put a compressor in here. In Ableton, all you gotta do is this, Ableton 12, by the way. Open up this sidechain thing, which is an external key. That's what it should be called. External key, the source, I'm gonna have it be the kick because I want it to come in every time the kick comes in. Every time the kick comes in, I want the compressor to actually, you know, act based on that kick. Now there's a sidechain filter here. This is very useful because it has a high pass filter. It cuts the low frequencies to whatever you set it to be, but only on the input signal that this compressor is going to be using to obey, like the analytical signal, the sidechain, remember? So that means that if it's a kick and you filter it up to 15,000, then you only get the very top end of the kick, which means that the attack is super short and it doesn't have any of that decay or the body of the kick, which is not what we want. We want the thump. We want the kick, the pop, only the attack. So we're going to filter it, I don't know, maybe around 1,000 and see how it sounds. So that's super smashing it, exaggerating it. And the attack should be nothing. The release should be pretty short. And notice how it doesn't act on the actual impact of the sound when the kick is not sounding. So it doesn't take away from the attack of the sound. It only takes away from the attack of the sound when the kick comes in. Why is that important? It is important because you want the transient of the kick to be the most important transient. You don't want it to be fighting with the transient of a funk cowbell synthesizer. You want the kick to have the impact, not the synthesizer. So when you play them together, it sounds like this. Which we're also missing some, oh, we're missing the what. I'll put in the what right now. Where is it? Oh, I guess it's already in there. What we're missing is it has kind of like a choir thing going on. So I synthesized that already as well. Plugins. It's in my user library. Where is it? User. And I called it chorus or something. Choir. Yeah, there you go. So this that's what they have going on. That one. In the background, it's kind of like a supporting. It kind of has the effect of being reverb for the funk cowbell. Oof. Okay. Obviously, it's not that loud. Now, again, the same thing has to happen with this compressor. So we're removing some of the frequencies that we don't need, and we are removing the transient. Yeah, I found it on the first try. Crazy. Again, nothing crazy. We don't need to be super... There you go. It sounds like in the original song it has a little bit more of a release. I copied it, this whole 4-bar, this whole bar here, because if you copy from a bar here, from 5 to 9, 4 bars, 4 beats, whatever, you know exactly where it's going to be coming in. You just got to go 4 beats before that's supposed to come in and you paste it. But if you want to go slowly, then you can come in, take these two, and then guess, not guess, but slowly go in and zoom in and then click where you want it to be pasted. It's a little bit of an easier trick to just copy from space before, you know? All right. Also, I don't think it has that many hi-hats. Yeah, that sounds better. Sounds more like the actual song. Okay, here's another. Has a lot of delay apparently. That impact has a lot of delay apparently, so let's go to the delay. 1, 2, 3, 4. It looks like it's on a 4 beat. Oh wait, it's another one. Yeah, it is another one. Wow. I guess I forgot about that. User library. Percussion shaker? No, it's a disco stab. I only have one disco stab. Oh, I have a violin. So this is a disco stab. This is where this comes in. That. Again, that's also just something they got off of Splice. They didn't make this. I found this. It's called TAUSC Disco Stab. You know, you could buy this on Splice. Although what they did do is that it feels like they kind of removed some of the melodic elements of it. It doesn't sound like it's that. It sounds like it has an external key going down with the kick. What? Why am I not doing anything? Oh, because there's no kick here yet. Duh. Okay, it's a little better. It sounds like they used an over-the-top compressor to get rid of some of the... Yeah, that's more like it. Oh, and also it's shorter. And it has a lot of delay. Again, if you don't want to have that attack on the delay, then just like everything else, you have the send, and you have the ability to change how you send this stab to the delay. So you can send it like that and not send the actual transient. And the delay won't have a transient like this. The way that they did it, they got rid of the transient, but they didn't completely eviscerate it. So now that we have, I think we have all the elements done. Now we can move it around like sections. That's why I like to group them together. So if you pay attention, you see that I have a group for the drums, kick, clap, hi-hat, 2 hats, sound effects, which is the what, the bass, which is by itself, the melody, bass pluck, oh, that one should actually be together. Bass. The funk cowbell, what is this? Choir. Choir ahs. Anyway, now that we have all of this together, in Ableton, it's super easy to just do that and move it around. So right now we're looking for the pluck. Yeah. And they got rid of the extra hi-hat too. Duplicate it again. Duplicate it again. Ooh, okay, so we got to make that. Although, technically, it's already there. So if we really wanted to, we just cut some of this here. That's it. You just repeat it. That's not synthesization. To synthesize this, I already did synthesize it. Serum is where I made this. And I have it in user FX noise tone. So that one is my recreation of this, which it looks like it goes on for 3 bars. What? I think that's it. Or not. There you go. Found it. Okay, so it sounds like this now. So we can automate this. So when you are in Ableton and you don't have the key, the keyboard key toggle thing, then you can press the letter A and it toggles between seeing the automation for the volume and not being able to see it, or volumation for whatever it is. So if you're on the pan, it'll show you the automation of the pan. Click on the volume, it'll show you the automation for the volume. You click on the volume for the reverb audio effect track and it'll show you that. And that is where you can use, again, if this is off, you can press the letter B and it gives you the pencil or pencil, which I like to call it. And you can just draw the automation in. No reverb. Another quick fact, if you want to be able to move, let's say you didn't want to have 0, but you wanted to have some, you can do that. And then with the bottom of the mouse, you see how it kind of gets selected? You can click on it and drag it up and down. So you can change the volume of this entire clip where you place these two separators on. You don't call them separators, I don't know what you call them. Whatever these things are called. Another thing, since we're teaching Ableton, I guess, you can add locators throughout the entire song. For example, right now we have this, which I'm going to call Womp Synth Intro. This is the bass block. This is the funk. This is the noise break. And then we're going back to the bass block. Listen to this. That's a different synth. So let's go into Serum. I already made the synth as well. And now we also have the other chord, which is a different synthesizer, which I also made here. I think I called it harder, something harder saw. It sounds like this. That sounds more like it. Uh-huh. That sounds like it. Oh, okay, another quick tip. If you want to copy something from Ableton like this, you can copy the entire MIDI clips. But if you want to copy the automation inside those tracks, you don't just copy the MIDI clips, then you can make sure that this thing is off. If you copy it, let's do some weird automation here. If you want to copy this automation and be able to duplicate it with Command D, you can do that. But if you have this lock on, automation lock, it'll only duplicate what you have selected, but not the automation. So that's one thing. Another thing, if you want to copy the entire section over like this, what you could do is just select all elements of the song and copy it and paste it. But if you want to copy the exact same time signature and everything in it, like take the entire piece of the project, including the song tempo and all the other automation from all the other parts, and delete that part of that selection, like the time itself, then you go Command Shift X. If you just go Command X, you only copy and you only cut what you have selected. If you do Command C, you only copy what you have selected. If you do Command Shift X, you will copy everything and that time itself. So Command Z will undo, Command Shift Z will redo. That's why you saw that part disappear of the funk right here when I did this, and then I did Command Z. It's just a habit that I have. Anyway, so it sounds like the rest of the song just repeats. So let's go ahead and fill it in. Another quick tip is that if you want to have a better mix between your instrumental and your vocals, for example this, you find the resonant frequencies or the main frequencies of the vocal, for example, like this. Let's go with F6 because I've been using EQ8 from Ableton. Well, let's stay on Ableton. No need to bring in a different EQ.
Act like an angel and dress like crazy. Oh, the girls are girly. Oh, the girls are girly. Oh, the girls are girly.
There's an important part, 220.
Oh, the girls are girly. Oh, the girls.
500 for sure.
Oh, the girls are girly. Oh, the
1000 is kind of annoying, but 1.5 is fine.
Oh, the girls are girly.
3 is where they get all the high end.
Oh, the girls are girly.
Oof, and that's just air. Okay, got it. So now we go into the melody, which is why it's important to group everything together. You put an EQ8 on here and you put it down on 500, down on 1.5K, down on 3K. And this is just very generic. You could actually listen to it yourself.
Oh, the girls are girly. Oh, the girls are girly.
You can hear that it doesn't make a big difference on the actual melodies. You could up the scale too. And all it does is cut out the frequencies that are specifically being used by the vocal. So if you're cutting out those frequencies on the melody, what do you think that's going to do for the rest of the song? It's going to open up more space for the rest of the elements of the song to come in, specifically the vocal, which uses those specific frequencies more than anything. Which means that when the vocal uses those frequencies, the melody will be out of the way. Now, even better, if you want to do one even better, you could bring in F6. I like to use them with the RTA. And you can make the exact same changes, but this time down on 500, down on 1.5K, down on 3K. Again, like I said, we don't need to bring it down too much, nothing crazy. But the difference of being able to use F6 or Pro Q, for example, is that you can do an external key. Sidechain source, external. Yeah, that means that it'll duck down dynamically when another instrument or whatever other track plays, which is amazing because it's only going to duck those specific frequencies when the vocals come in. So I'm going to use the external sidechain, external key as the vocals. And have it go down, let's have it go down 2 decibels every time that something comes in. With the range, again, external, and external, range minus 2 dB. Now, I've done this in Pro Q, but I haven't done this in F6. My question is, where do I route it? Global release, Usually this stuff is pretty self-explanatory, but I guess this time it's not. So we're gonna do something that a lot of producers sometimes don't like to do because it hurts their ego. But I'm gonna go online, I'm gonna look up the actual manual for the F6 because it's gonna help me. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay, floating band dynamic, good. Okay, route the lead vocal to F6 as an external sidechain. Group the instruments to stereo bus, insert the F6, route the lead vocal to F6. So you have to route it from here. The sidechain input is right here. Okay, there you go. So the sidechain input will be vocals. Or is it? Crazy a cappella. Remember we talked about the threshold? So if the threshold is too high, then this specific band of the EQ will never activate. But if you set the threshold low enough, looks like the threshold is minus 42. Crazy. Now let's listen to it. My mistake. Don't do this, guys. I put in an F6 RTA mono instead of a stereo one. Now that it's stereo, what does it sound like the way it's actually supposed to sound like? See how it only goes down when the vocal comes in? And it gives more space to the vocal. Not a huge difference. And again, it doesn't make the actual melodic instruments sound any worse. Now, another trick to make everything sound more cohesive, not a trick, but a technique, is that during mixing, you want to go in and EQ every single thing specifically. The point of EQing is to get the important parts of the sound while removing the unimportant parts of the sound, which are just muddying up the mix. Because again, there's a limited amount of space that we have inside every song that we make. Sonic space. There's the frequencies, low frequency, mid frequency, high frequency, going from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz that the humans can hear. And then there is also the mid side. Remember we talked in the beginning of the stream about stereo sounds. When something is different from your left ear to the right ear, it sounds like it's stereo. Your brain registers it that way. So there's different spaces right there too. You can have something be mono, which means that it's identical on both ears, so it sounds like it's right in the center. Something that is more stereo or off to the side, which means that there's a difference between the left and the right signal, which your brain interprets it on something on the sides, quite literally. So that's another layer that we could use for mixing. So there's the EQing for the frequency spectrum. There is the positioning, the track positioning for the left and right. And sometimes you go up to like almost Atmos, Dolby, like 5.1, 7.1. Then you have a bunch of other different positions, not just the 3.0. The other way that you can layer sounds in a song is what I was talking about right now is the reverb and delay. So that's spatial positioning, and not just left, right, but it makes it go further down. So have you ever had this happen to you where you're talking to somebody and they're right in front of you, you can hear them very clearly, but if you're talking to them and you're screaming at them, they're far away, you hear less of their original vocal and more of their vocal interacting with everything around them. Like the actual reverb in this room, like, hey, 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 sounds a whole lot different than this. Hey! So the difference there is that it sounds like it's further back in space because you hear less of the actual sound and more of the reverberation, just like a knocking. Sounds like it's knocking from somewhere further away because you hear more of the echo and less of the original sound. So that's another way that you can layer things at. If you have two sounds that are both mono right in the center and you don't want them to clash with each other, you can EQ them and you can put some spatial positioning, put some reverb on one of them, a mono reverb, a stereo reverb, a slap delay, a stereo delay, and it'll put it in a different position in space within the song. And then obviously the other, one of the most basic things in a song is that you layer it by space, by time. So you don't want to have what we did with the side chaining so that the synthesizers go down upon the impact of the kick. That's another thing because you're layering it in different times in space. So both the attack or both the transient of the synth and the transient of the bass and the transient of the kick are not sounding at the same time because the transient of the kick activates a compressor which has an external key or a sidechain. A lot of people like to call it sidechain. That means that they're not hitting at the same time. So that's another way to layer it and have a cleaner mix. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I didn't spend too much on this. I think it took me about an hour to actually do the sound design for everything. So all in all, maybe this remake took me about 6 hours with the composition and production, everything I did right here on stream with you guys, plus all the preparation from beforehand. So it's really not that crazy to be able to make these kinds of sounds or these kinds of songs if you have the right tools and you have the right know-how. A lot of the time, you might actually have the sound like this funk cowbell, but it might sound great, but you can't do anything with it if you don't know what to make the sound of it. Like, does that sound like a good song? No, you gotta actually know how to compose and whatnot. Have a good idea of the genre. You don't want to be making a funk song and then it's like, like you don't want to be making a hip hop song and it doesn't have any hi hats. You got to know the style of what you're making as well. Again, this is just a really quick recap of the stuff that I want to show you guys. Please hit the subscribe button, the follow button. If you're watching this live, click the follow. I'm going to be uploading this session and all the Serum presets over to my website once I make the website. So if you guys want to download this and recreate some EDM/funk/slash K-pop type beat stuff with it, go ahead. Just, change it up a little. Don't download it and change the notes a little bit. Like, actually make something new with it. You will get copyrighted. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you everyone who joined. It looks like we only had a couple of viewers, but again, we only live streamed so that I could edit the YouTube video. Now I'm gonna go get to work. So thank you everybody. See you next time.